The intergenerational trauma that so many Indigenous people endure is still going on. In some places, it's getting worse. David Akin is following this story for us from Ottawa. David?
Well, Donna, the first thing Tataskweyak Chief Doreen Spence and members of her council did today was to meet with local RCMP to find ways to step up campaigns to prevent illegal drugs and alcohol from being sold to underage members of the community. Drug and alcohol abuse by young people, by teenagers, that was a big problem and was the common denominator in all of the suicides. But the aggravating factor has been the discoveries of unmarked graves at former Indian residential schools.
I think it triggers a lot of anger, a lot of trauma, because they're just finding out, this generation is just finding out what happened to their grandparents.
Seti is the Grand Chief of the Regional Council of Northern Manitoba First Nations, including Tataskweyak, and he was in the community last week.
I just know that they will navigate through this. It's not going to be easy, but they will, and I have hope and faith that they will navigate their people through this dark time.
But the community will need help. There are only 2 mental health therapists in the community of 2,600, and they work only Monday to Friday. The federal government is mobilizing 2 more youth workers, and the Canadian Red Cross is providing funding for more training in the community. But advocates say long-term supports need to be in place, not just in Tataskweyak, but in other remote First Nations.
We have to be very proactive. We have to think ahead and try to reach out to the young people, because it's a very critical time.
Governments in Winnipeg and Ottawa appear willing to respond.
We'll continue to do everything we can in our power to address these issues.
The layers of grief and intergenerational trauma experienced by Indigenous peoples are of particular concern, and that's why we are continuing to work directly on investments for mental health in Indigenous communities.
And the crisis in Tataskweyak was on the agenda tonight when Prime Minister Trudeau and the premiers held their regular teleconference meeting as the country's first ministers seek ways to better support the mental health challenges of the country's First Nations. Donna?
David Akin in Ottawa, thanks. There is some support available. The Canada Suicide Prevention Service line is available in Canada 24 hours a day. The number is toll-free. You can speak in confidence. It's 1-833-456-4566.